My name was once known as Ashen Veil, but I have since been told that names can be discarded like ash in the wind. I'm learning that my childhood may not have been as ordinary as I once believed. In this electric world of metallic towers, dazzling screens, and ceaseless hum, I've lost my grasp of what it means to be normal. A man claiming to be my legal guide, he called himself my counsel, advised me to put my memories into writing, no matter how surreal or unimaginable they seem. And so I will. These are my words, my truth. Accept it, doubt it, do with it what you must. I was born into a secluded spiritual order called the Ember Veil. For nearly a century, our cloistered settlement, Cradle Reach, thrived in complete isolation. We believed ourselves to be the last flickering light in a world scorched by sin. When I was born, they say the torchbearer, our spiritual patriarch, lifted me toward the smoke-filled sky and declared me tended by the flame. In our beliefs, children were sacred embers, precious, fragile, and eternally watched. Our community lived by the dictums of the ash scrolls. Chief among them, no soul walks above the torchbearer. That role has always belonged to Elias Rowan, a man believed to speak directly with the flame of creation. His lineage, passed from chosen elder to son, claimed descent from the first of us who walked through the fire unburned. Standing in his presence, they said, was to feel the warmth of divine peace. But I would later learn it could also sear like the sun. Our structure was rigid yet revered. The tenders, farmers, weavers, and craftsmen formed the foundation. Above them were the cinders, those who worked with flame and scripture in the sacred halls. Then came the watchers, the personal shadows of Elias, guardians of purity, always cloaked in smoke-gray robes. But highest, save Elias, were the kindled brides, 5 ever-veiled women who walked in silence behind him. When one passed, another pure soul of exactly 20 years would be chosen. None saw their faces. To do so was sacrilege, for only Elias may glimpse their fire. And then, there was the Wanderer. Once in every generation, a single soul was chosen for the Ember pilgrimage. This Wanderer was the only one permitted to cross beyond our mist-cloaked woods into the ash-covered lands outside. Their mission was whispered only between them and Elias. They would return aged, if at all, and upon their return the next would be chosen. It was an immeasurable honor. So when my father was named Wanderer 5 winters ago, my chest swelled with pride even as my heart cracked from his absence. With no brothers of blood and no man in my hearth, I was gifted a brother in spirit. Cale, 2 years older and brighter than the hearth in winter. He was everything I wasn't: bold, brave, irreverent. Cale wasn't afraid to mock the watchers in secret, his impersonations of Elias making us stifle laughter beneath our cloaks. He never feared the veil, and in that, he helped me see through it too. Life in Cradle Reach was a blend of devotion and discipline. Ignorance is the match that lights decay. Red Ember Scroll 3:14. We were educated in the scriptures daily, interpreting the riddles of the ash scrolls under dim lantern light. On every full moon, we gathered by the great fire in the stone courtyard, dancing until dawn. At 12, I was inducted into the second ring, where boys trained to one day lead hearths of their own. It was during this phase, by the moonfire, that I first heard Elias speak of our origins. And I remember it. Every word burned into memory. Before the sky, before stars, before even time's first breath, there was the Ember Gate. It flickered at the edge of void, a flame untouched. From it, all things were born. Light, heat, life. Yet darkness lingered beyond it, hungry and eternal. When the gate opened, it gave mankind warmth, but the darkness followed. Corruption bloomed, war, lust, ruin, until came the first kindled, no child of man, but of the flame. He carried lost children into the veil and lit the first fire of Cradle Reach. We are the only sparks that remain. All else is ash. I believed every syllable, until the fire turned cold. It was during a morning ritual that all of us in the second ring were summoned. Watchers circled us like silent wolves. At the center knelt Cale, head bowed, face streaked with soot. Elias stood beside him, flame-robed and unmoving. He spoke, One among you has snuffed the sacred trust. He crossed into the shadows and brought back a relic tainted with outer fire. A small object was tossed onto the stone, charred, rectangular, a book, but not like our scrolls. It was vibrant, innocent, colorful. On the cover, a cartoon child smiled under blue skies, the word Archie just visible. Before anyone could speak, Elias drenched the book in oil and set it alight. And the flame didn't purify, it devoured. None of us spoke as the book sizzled into black flakes. We were statues, suspended in breath and heartbeat, as the last of its pages twisted in fire. The torchbearer, Elias Rowan, turned his gaze upon us. His voice was like dry bark cracking in flame. You hesitate, you wonder, but let me be clear, there is no such thing as a small ember. Even a flicker can ignite a forest. He reached down to Cale, who had risen without hesitation, his face composed, perhaps even hopeful. For a breath, I believed the ordeal had passed, that forgiveness might fall like gentle ash. Then Elias poured burning oil across Cale's palm. Sin, he whispered, spreads faster than flame. It chars the soul before the flesh even feels it. Cale's hand twisted in restrained agony, his body trembling but his lips silent. The air reeked of scorched flesh. When Elias finally let him fall to his knees, the boy cradled his wound, but not once did he cry out. The torchbearer knelt beside him, his expression stripped of warmth. Pain is not penance. This wound is your doing. Now I ask again, do you wish to be cleansed? Cale was pale, paler than snowfall in the outer woods. His lips trembled, and yet, through his terror, he whispered, yes. Elias smiled, serene, eerie. He helped Cale to his feet and walked him across the courtyard. There, half buried in stone, was a rusted iron hatch. The boy froze before it, shaking harder than before. Elias caressed his arm like a father would his son. If you truly seek absolution, there is but one path. Cale nodded once, tearful, resigned. The hatch creaked open. Beneath it, darkness, a metal ladder, and something else. Something breathing. I swore I heard whispers below the hum. I tried to see more, but an older boy grabbed my shoulder and shook his head. Without resistance, Cale descended. The hatch closed. Then came the screaming. It lasted for 2 days. Screams that shredded the silence. Screams that no one acknowledged. On the 3rd day, silence returned. But not peace. 3 more days passed. When Cale emerged, he was no longer Cale. His once rich black hair had turned stark white. His eyes were dim. His voice only offered in chants during sacred night fires. The boy I knew was gone. Purged, broken, or both. I should have run then, but I didn't. I didn't know if it was faith or fear that rooted me, but I stayed. Until tonight, the wanderer returned. No Ember pilgrim had come back in under 3 decades. But there he was, my father, once lost to time and purpose, striding through the village gates. I ran to him. He walked past. He went straight to Elias. They disappeared into the torchbearer's private hall. I'd never realized how much I missed him until I saw him. My heart ached, and my curiosity burned. So I followed. The moonlight cloaked me. I slipped past the watchers and crept toward the great hall, my feet crunching over frostbitten leaves. I passed the rusted hatch, and the mere proximity to it sent a shiver racing down my spine. I crouched below the hall window. At first, murmurs, then shouted rage. To the void with your gates. My blood turned to ice. My father, Caleb Veil, the most loyal man I had ever known, spoke as no one had ever dared to. I peeked through the curtain. Inside stood my father, wild-eyed, fierce. Across from him sat Elias, flanked as always by his 5 kindled brides. They stood still, their veiled heads bowed. Elias remained eerily calm. Brother Caleb, you speak with the voice of the Ashborn. My father pointed a shaking finger. You are the Ashborn. You and your entire damned Veil. I see the truth now. I'm leaving, and I'm taking my family. The watchers stepped forward. Elias halted them with a mere flick of his hand. I still believe in your loyalty, Elias said. It can be rekindled. Will you seek the flame's absolution? My father snarled a word I'd never heard, but Elias understood. He bowed his head in solemnity. So be it. You leave me no choice. I declare your spirit exiled from the flame. You are unkind-led. What happened next haunts me beyond sleep. The brides reached up and lifted their veils. Beneath were not faces. Their skin was warped and earthen, mottled gray and streaked with amber ridges. Their mouths, when they opened, were filled with rows of jagged, glistening teeth. Their eyes burned gold. They glided toward my father and began to inhale. His scream tore through the walls as pale vapor left his mouth in torrents. His skin wrinkled, blistered, collapsed. His hair turned bone white. Then he was gone, no flesh, no bone. Just dust on the timber floor. The brides turned, and their glowing eyes met mine. I ran. I didn't look back. Not once. Not even when the crashing footsteps of watchers thundered behind me. The forest welcomed me like a closing jaw. I ran until sound vanished, until light appeared. The trees ended, and I emerged onto something unfathomable, vast black trails stretching endlessly, lined with shimmering orbs of red and white. Beams of yellow light swept toward me with a monstrous growl. I thought they had found me, but then the growl stopped, and from behind the lights stepped a man. Just a man. He asked if I was all right. His voice was kind. It didn't make sense. Wasn't this the world of the Ashborn? How could kindness live here? The man drove me to a place he called a station, where men in uniforms asked me countless questions. Some I understood, some I didn't, but one question echoed again and again. Where is the commune? And that I could not answer. I, whose memory had once been unmatched, could not recall the path. It had vanished like my father, like my faith. They say the trauma caused a mental block, but I know better. The forest has no intention of being found, not until it chooses to be, because the Ember Gate will open again. And when it does, as the scroll says, the ash shall walk, and the world will burn.